Commonly, people will ask me a question over lunch or at break, and I seldom, and I encourage that, that's fine. I seldom answer the question. And it's because when somebody asks me a question, usually over half the group has the same question. So I say, is it okay if I share the answer with everyone? So one of you asked me a question over lunch about one of the challenges in moving toward an integrated opportunity, whether it's employment or volunteering, is staff attitude. You know, when you have staff that have been working at an organization for 20 years or 30 years, whatever, they're used to doing things in a certain way. You become comfortable with your job, and now we're changing the expectations in the role. And people resist. People do not merely resist change. They resist being changed. I'm going to say that again. People do not resist change. They resist being changed. And when people resist change, they will tend not to tell you why they resist it, in part because they don't know themselves. But some of the reasons why people resist change is fear of failure. I understand my job now. I've been doing this for 20 years. I have the capability and competence, and now you're asking me to do this. How many staff are going to come forward and say, well, the reason I don't want to do this is that I don't have the skills to do it? Hardly anybody's going to say that, right? So, but people resist failure. They resist, and I'm going to answer the question that was asked. They are resisted because they fear the unknown. That's a really important point. I know what today will bring because I've been coming here for the last 20 years. What are the unknowns with regard to this? People fear loss of independence and power. So if the change is such that people feel they're going to lose their independence or control over a situation, they're going to be more resistant to change. So where does that take us? Because people have, and there are likely many other reasons people resist change. I'm just looking at them. So the first thing you want to do is try to understand, what is that person communicating to me about why they're having difficulty with this resistance? You want to try to sort of get in their head. What are they sharing with me? People will tend not to resist change because they're mean-spirited people. They don't wake up in the morning and says, I hate my supervisor in this organization, and I'm going to be malevolent, mean-spirited, and vitriolic, and I'm going to do everything I can to stand in the way of this change. That's not it. Most people are really good people, and they just have difficulty. So one of the first things we need to do is make sure we're giving staff the skills and competencies that they're going to need to do that transition. That's one of the things we did at Tierra del Sol. That's why they contracted with me, is we really wanted to make sure the staff had the skills to do what they needed to do and to look at that job in a way that we could identify the skills that are going to be needed. The second aspect is celebrate the staff. Catch them being good. Any movement that you see toward their acceptance of that innovation, of that new thing that you're introducing, celebrate them. And if somebody comes back and says, well, I'm not an animated person. I'm not the kind of person who goes over and says, boy, that's fantastic, that's really good. My staff know how I feel about them. What are they, mind readers? No. Be celebratory. Catch your staff being good. Be enthusiastic. Be positive. Next point, you need to likely change the job description. You can't expect the staff to shift what they're doing and have a job description that is reflective of what they have been doing. So we need to change that job description. Next point. If you do performance appraisal evaluations, those performance appraisal evaluations need to reflect the new job descriptions. You need to evaluate the staff on what you now think is important. And they need to know this is what we're going to be evaluating you on. Next point. You got to treat this like a religion. I don't know how else to say it. Religions are filled with artifacts. I don't care if you're Muslim, Jewish, Catholic, whatever. You go into a house of worship. They got stuff everywhere. Either a Star of David, a crucifix. They got a round window at the front of the church, which is symbolic of the helm of a ship, because Christ is steering the people. Even the people don't even understand what half that stuff is. They get filled with all this stuff. That's what you need to be doing in your organization. If you're currently facility-based, you need pictures everywhere of people who are in integrated employment settings, people who are volunteering, showing, and those pictures are not like this. The pictures are always eyes and hands on your work. And you have those type of photos everywhere and you celebrate it. You create a lot of narratives and stories of celebrations where you can talk about this person who maybe came out of Ag News or wherever, or had been living in a group home and went to a traditional day program, and now for the first time he's working 10 hours a week or volunteering 20 hours a week. And you need those stories that you can put on your website, on flyers and brochures, so that you're creating this new culture and shifting your culture. So you're not just looking at that staff. You're looking at the total context of everything around that staff. The performance appraisal evaluations, job descriptions, the artifacts, my relationship with them and how I celebrate them. It's sort of like a gardener, and this is the best analogy I can give you. I'm a gardener, right? And I have a flower that is not thriving. And I look at the flower and I realize there's a tree behind the flower, and that tree is blocking out the sunlight and the flower is not getting enough sun. So I cut back some branches and remove some leaves so that flower can get enough sun. And then I realize as I touch the dirt that the dirt is very dry and the flower needs moisture, and I get a can of water and start pouring some water onto the flower so it can get it. And I realize that the flower is surrounded by weeds, and the weeds are stopping the roots of the flower from growing. So I pull out the weeds and I put preen down on the dirt around the flower. I look at the flower and I see these little black specks. It has been attacked by some kind of fungus or mites, and I spray it with an insecticide and so forth to stop it from being attacked by the fungus or insects. And I look at the dirt, and the dirt is just very sandy, and I realize the flower needs fertilization, and I put the fertilizer around the dirt, and the flower begins to grow and bloom. Why? Because the problem was never the flower. It wasn't. Gardeners understand it. The problem was everything else around it. The problem is not the staff. The problem is not the people we support. It's all the things that are around them that can make the difference. That's in your controllable column. That's what I'm talking about. You can't wait for somebody to change for it to change. You're always looking at yourself. Now, the victim, on the other hand, would expect the staff to change. Don't look at them. There's only one person's behavior that is under your control. And I don't know about you, I'm a full-time job for myself. It takes everything I got to manage my behavior, and half the time I'm not successful. Just ask my wife, she'll be happy to tell you. So you look at your conduct and you say, what do I need to do to make this staff enthused? And Mahatma Gandhi gave us a really good thought. And he said, be the change in the world you wish to see. So we have to be exemplars in this. And if that's a word not in your vocabulary, let's embrace it. Exemplar. We got to be a really excellent example. We have to be enthusiastic about this. We have to be animated. I mean, again, we see some staff walking around looking like they got the worst case of hemorrhoids of any living human being. Gee, I think I'm a mushroom. They keep me in the dark and feed me manure. As managers, supervisors, you can't do that. You're welcome to do that, but get out of your position. Go someplace else. It won't work. You got to get these staff enthused and excited, and you do that by the same way I'm trying to do it with you. I'm damn exhausted right now, to tell you the truth. I got 10 calls from my wife to 2 o'clock in the morning because of her FTA. But you wouldn't know that. You reach down and you make it happen because it's in your controllable column. And some managers and some supervisors, that's not who they are. That's fine. Go someplace else. Hey, you never won't be looking for a job. There's tons of jobs. You're just not in there. Everybody, you got to find the right seat on the bus, okay? And there's a lot of seats. Thank goodness there's a lot of seats on the bus. And in this whole transition thing, for some managers and some supervisors, they're not on the right seat. Now, some of them shouldn't even be on the bus, but some of them need to find the right seat. Is everybody with me? So it's a matter of our attitude and being excited and enthused and inspired. And I am an actor, and I hope that you understand this. I'm an actor in a play. I truly am. I'm up here acting. You have to be an actor in a play. You have a stage and you have an audience, and you're trying to deliver a message to your audience. When I go and coach and I'm in a day program site that's facility-based, my audience is different. My lines are different. How I act is different. I mean, when I go on site and I coach, I'm quiet, almost shy. I speak softly. I tell the supervisor, gotta be right on my hip because you won't even hear me. See, where did this guy come from? He was in that classroom the other day. But that's what you have to be able to do. You gotta change roles. You gotta motivate. You gotta inspire. And if you feel like that's not you, then fake it. Fake it, doggone it. You know what you need to do. You make it you. And it's like somebody, you have a friend who, let's say, you live in Wisconsin and the weather's really horrible. And you have a friend who said, I'm moving to Hawaii. And they just bought this new winter coat. They didn't realize they were moving. And they said, would you like this coat? It's got all the price tags on it. And it's your size. You say, boy, thank you. It's an expensive coat. You took the coat. And so the next day you take off the price tags and you put the coat on. You know, it's my size, but it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like my coat. But you wear it to work and you think, it doesn't feel like my coat. This coat's not right. You take it off and you go home and you put the coat on, you head home, and God, this is not just the right coat. Then and then you take it off and you go home from work and you head home and you put the coat on. This doesn't feel right. I don't know about this coat. Next day you go to work, you put the coat on. What happened? It became your coat. It became your coat. That's what this is about. You decide how you have to present yourself. And it may not be who you are, and you may feel uncomfortable with it. But the more you do it, the more it will become you. I am convinced of that. Requires emotional intelligence, by the way. A lot of emotional intelligence. Is that making sense? Yeah. So this is not an event. It is a process. Changing hearts and minds. That's the whole process that you're trying to do. And you're trying to create a vision. A vision. And where there is no vision, the people perish. New Testament, I'm Jewish. I threw that in for good thought there. You can have it. Right? But really, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to create a vision among your staff about what life can be like in terms of this employment concept and an integrated life. A vision. And we may not be ever able to fully realize the vision. But you don't change the vision because you don't know how to get there. The vision never changes. And that's what this discussion is about. Okay, any other questions or comments? See, if somebody didn't ask that question, you never would have heard any of that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, next slide. This is. Remember I said I was going to share with you the statistics that were obtained by the council pursuant to your legislation. This is on employment. Anybody have a guess, by the way, before I put it up here, of what percentage of individuals of employment age, 18 to 65, let's say, who are under the regional center system, what percentage of those individuals are employed in the state? Anybody want to give me a guess? Wait, what?
Less than 10?
Less than 10%? Not that far off.
I'd say 12%.
12%? California unemployment in January 2024 was 5.2%. That's just general California unemployment. Los Angeles unemployment, 6.2%. U.S. unemployment, 3.9. Last week, the unemployment, I don't know if you folks monitor this. If you're interested in employment, I assume you would. The national unemployment rate notched up to 4%, which is still an historic low. Look at this. Only 14% of all people in the system are employed. What if I set up a system that said only 14% of all Jews in this state are going to be employed, and I'm going to pay agencies to make only 14% of these people employed? What if I said that for African Americans or Latinos? But that's exactly what this is. There's no way around it. 14% employment. Oh, here's the kicker. What percent of that 14% are employed full-time? I will bet you 5% are not employed full-time. I will bet you the vast majority it's 10 hours a week. So the statistics are far worse. If I said, now, what percentage of all people in the system are employed full-time, like 40 hours a week? I'll bet you it isn't 3%. That is just horrible, especially given the federal legislation, your state legislation, and all the money. We have more than enough money to get everybody employed. We have a maldistribution, if you're not familiar with that term, a maldistribution of funding. We're putting our money into systems that stand in the way of people being employed. Okay, here we go. What is right is not always popular, and what is popular is not always right. Because we have so many families say, oh, I love this day program. My son or daughter just thinks it's wonderful. They're so happy, they talk about it all the time. And you can ask many of the individuals, we do surveys. Do you like your day program? I love my day program, it is great. Well, that has nothing to do with whether it is the right thing to do. It doesn't tell us whether that, is truly enhancing the quality of that person's life. Just because somebody likes it doesn't make it good. There are people who like to smoke, right? It doesn't make it right. There are people that like to ride a motorcycle without a helmet. It doesn't make it right. So let's keep that in mind. Just because people are happy with what they got doesn't make it right. Reasons to maintain the status quo, and these are things that people have shared with me over the years. The staff liked the program, participants liked the program, as I just said. This is how we've always done it. And if you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always gotten. Let's do it again. If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always gotten. And what we have is not really where we need to be. It doesn't fulfill our vision. Well, we just had licensing and we have no citations. That's a common one that I hear. Licensing has nothing to do with this, and licensing is all but eliminated. They're going to be gone anyways. I mean, there's no role in licensing for the future because it'll be no places. And that's what license is, a place, and there will be no places. So they're going to be gone. Families are pleased with the program. If it's not broken, why fix it? Where I really like to be is where a place is in crisis. Man, when I go to an agency and people are miserable, they're concerned they're going to go out of business, they have all these issues, that's the best place I can be because I don't have to convince people. They realize if we don't do something, we're going to go down the toilet. I mean, it's when I'm in a place and think, oh, we just got accredited. CARF was in here, 15 years accreditation. Yeah, see, we're great. There's the challenge. It's when they have real problems that it's much easier to transition. Site-based services. Now, I probably should not even share this with you because I am concerned that somebody may leave here with the wrong idea, that somehow I am endorsing site-based services, but I think you now know enough from me that you know I'm not endorsing it. But I have to deal with the facts, and here are some of the facts about site-based services. People in site-based services can have a greater level of independence than in an integrated setting. You have folks with autism who can leave a room, go down the hall, and to the bathroom by themselves unsupervised. You can have people who can go from one room to another unsupervised. You don't even have to have eyes on for many of these people. In a community integrated setting, some of these folks will lose that degree of independence because you have a natural level of protective oversight in a facility that you don't have in a community setting. So thus, improve protective oversight, if you will. If I have people that are exit obsessed, by the way, everybody got that term? Please do not call it AWOL. That's a military term, stands for absence without leave. Don't say that. And don't say elope. That's what two people do that are in love. They're going to go off and get married. It is exit obsessed. These are old terms like out of the 80s, People use those terms at the same agencies that name their homes after the street. You ever heard of these agencies? Oak Street Group Home. Who ever heard of a home named after a street? But this is what they do with their language. So again, in a facility, I can have a delayed egress door, right? So if somebody is exit obsessed, they try to get out, they can't, alarm goes off, I got 10 to 15 seconds and I can redirect them. I can't do that in a community-based integrated setting. Decreased stigma. Some of our folks have conduct issues that tarnish their reputations. I mean, we have people who will go up and smell people's hair, some people with autism, because it's hyper in terms of the sensory issues, or they'll engage in self-injurious behavior and hand flapping, which can be very stigmatizing. People look at them and it tarnishes their reputation. But if I'm facility-based, my reputation's not tarnished because all these people sort of understand me who are here. So you have that whole thing of stigma. And we have the ability to support people to have an enhanced attention to task, because I can control all the variables in a facility-based environment versus all the things that are going on in an integrated setting. People can be highly distracted. We have so many folks that are so hyperactive and attention deficit issues. And diminished interfering behavior. Because I can control the factors such as noise levels, and I can have the person sit over here, maybe away from other people, I can diminish their interfering behavior. I gave that term early on, didn't I, today? Interfering conduct, because it interferes with quality of life. And so I may get a lot of conduct issues that I might not normally see in a facility-based environment that I may see in an integrated setting. I am not putting this up here to deter us from moving toward an integrated environment. I'm putting it up here so we realize we have to address these issues. And unlike community-based services, they can't. Staff have many legitimate concerns to support anormalized rhythms. Now, I'm going to bring this up. I wish I could stop it, but I can't. That term, will you make a note? Because that one term is probably the most important term that I'm going to be using today. Anormalized rhythms. That term is the basis for us to move toward an integrated employment or volunteer setting. Traditional day programs have anormalized rhythms. That's why they are traditional and classic. A normalized rhythm for an adult is to work 40 hours a week. An anormalized rhythm for somebody of working age would be to go bowling on a Wednesday afternoon, to go to a movie on Friday, and just to go to the park and enjoy the day, or go to a swimming pool and go swimming in the afternoon. I have no problem, and this is an important point, I have no problem with respect to the activities that people engage in a traditional day program. I'm going to say it again. I have no problem. So when I go and I see that they're playing cards, I don't have problems with people playing cards. I don't have problem with people going to the mall and just walking around the mall. I don't have problems with people going to a park and throwing lawn yards or playing beanbag in a park. I have problems with when we do it. You got that point? That's the key point of this discussion. Those are the kind of activities that adults engage in when they are not working. It's on your day off. Or if you are retired, which is, we're going to talk about that. We're going to identify the 4 reasons why people do not have to be employed. And retirement will be one of them. So everybody got this thing about anormalized rhythms. That's the key concept. At this point, we have not defined a meaningful day. You do realize that? In other words, we keep talking about a meaningful day, and I said at the very beginning I was going to give you an empirical, which means observable, operational definition of what a meaningful day is. So if you're not in agreement with me, I'm not sure what you're not agreeing with, because I haven't even defined what we're talking about yet. Okay, I have to get to the point where I can define what we're talking about. What is a meaningful day? And then when we get there, then you can disagree with me. And yesterday, I would say probably half the folks in the room disagreed with me. They didn't. I haven't read the, pardon me?
On what
a meaningful day is, yeah. That's the thing of contention. It's a huge issue of contention. And when I give you the definition, my response will be, you do not have to accept my definition. You don't have to like it, but you better give me yours. Or you need to decide that we're not going to provide a definition for meaningful day because we don't even believe that's important. I mean, you don't have many options. If you believe people need a meaningful day, then you need to be able to tell people what does that mean? And then everybody in your agency has to agree to that definition. You can't have some people defining it this way and people defining it this way. We all have to be on the same page. We all have to agree whatever somebody is engaged in, and you may all be doing a different activity. You could all be doing an activity, but according to the definition that I will be giving you, we can determine whether each of you is engaged in a meaningful activity, even though the activity may be very different. So I will give you that definition, and that's going to be key to this whole conversation in terms of defining what we're talking about. So many people, including our staff, the ones that we were talking about that may have difficulty, this is the kind of things that they're commonly thinking. You know, he loves to go to the movies, but his parents are really poor and they don't have the money for him to go to the movies, so we make it one of our activities. His parents are elderly and they don't have the ability to physically take him to the zoo, and he wants to go to the zoo. What is my point? This is true. This is true. This is like very true. It's not a matter of arguing with it. Do I think we should be doing this? Yeah. If you think it's important, then you set up a leisure recreational program and you provide these supports in evenings and weekends. That's what you do. Unless you want a traditional day program. This is a lot of the stuff they do in a traditional day program. And this is the rationale that is used. And it's all correct. I don't take argument with it. It is a normalizing rhythm. That's the problem. Not the activity is not the problem. It's the rhythm that's the problem. Traditional day services can do much to you. They can make you bored, frustrated, depressed, handicapped, isolated, dependent, but will do little for you. Typical day programs appear to reflect an overall pattern of clinical judgment, inconsistent with what is required to really realize a quality of life. I mean, most of these programs don't even try to define what a quality of life is. We just do things because this is how we've always done them. And we have a new generation of parents. I think many of you realize that these students in high school, especially transition age, 18 to 22, many of these folks now are working 5, 10 hours a week in practicum kind of situations, and some of them are earning money. They're actually employed in high school. And now, for many of these folks, they come out of high school, end up in a day program where they're not doing anything. And some of these parents are saying, well, wait a minute, my son was employed 10 hours a week in a transition program for the last 4 years, and now he's coming here and he doesn't even have a job. You're going to be getting more and more and more of that. So we're going to get this pushback, finally, from a growing number of families and parents. Are you meeting their expectations? I shared with you that there were 5 slides, or 6, that are in the top 5 of slides. Remember, the first one I showed you had 2 elements. Remember the law of parsimony? Don't feel bad if you don't. Remember, students never fail, just teachers. I didn't do a good job, right, Joel? You remember the law of parsimony this morning. And I said there were 2 elements, and that was people would have a meaningful day, yet to be defined, and it would be an inclusionary day as a result of integration. That was the first slide in the top 5. Here's the second slide in the top 5. Traditional day services emphasize skill acquisition, focusing on people's weaknesses and their inabilities. That's the essence of the program. You said, well, he can't wash his hands, so we're going to have a hand washing program. He has difficulty to attending to tasks, so we're going to have an objective to increase attention to task. He has difficulty to engage. I don't know what your objectives look like in these things. I mean, is that so we're going to help him with his eye contact, or we're going to help him improve his verbal communication skills. So typical ISPs and traditional day supports focus on people's inabilities. This is an important point. That's just how we structured it. But look at this, when you transition, watch what happens. Work focuses on abilities, building on strengths, and leads to the acquisition of new skills. You see, that's a tremendous difference. So the people now are growing, developing, and becoming more independent because they are engaged, using the skills that they have, and from that they grow, develop, and become more independent. And I'm going to put a chart up here, maybe next, I'm not sure where, and it basically indicates the vast majority of what we know we did not acquire in school. I mean, there's very little that I'm teaching you here that I got in college. Almost all of it is from my work. That's where I gain my skills. That's where most of you gain your skills. My social skills, They were horrible when I was younger. I was raised in a home where my parents didn't have any social skills. My father didn't even know how to introduce me. I mean, it was horrible. I've gained my social skills through work. I've gained my communication skills through work. It wasn't from college. It's through work. Why would it be any different for the people who we support? So we're not focusing on deficit. We're using employment and work and volunteering as a media for people to grow, develop, and become more independent, right? And it could be even things like, for people who have cerebral palsy, it could be improving extension if you have contractures or palmar grasp or pincer grasp, because I'm going to have them engage in some activities like a custodial task. They have a contracture, so I want to make sure that I'm having them vacuum the floor, using the arm that has atrophy or contractures to help them improve their range of motion and extension. Or for some folks that are very involved, their hands may be in this position where the thumb goes in. You've seen that, like this. And I want them to be able to improve their palmar grasp, so I want the vacuum handle in their hand. Every reason that you give me why we shouldn't is the justification for doing it. Let's say it again. Every reason that you give me why we shouldn't is the justification for doing it. So if you say, well, Tom, she can't vacuum the floor because she has contractures. She can't vacuum the floor because she doesn't have this grasp. That's why I need her to be vacuuming the floor. How can you improve your range of motion and your extension if people never give you an opportunity to move your arm and grasp something? So you can't allow the staff to give you an explanation as to what people cannot do because of their limitations. Those limitations are the reason why we want them to do it. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it's the truth. It is the truth. Oh, and by the way, these are called, if you want to make note, functional skills. Functional outcomes. Functional outcomes. There are 8 characteristics of active learning. 8. I've shared 3 with you so far. One is the activity must be meaningful, and I haven't defined it yet. We will here shortly. The second is it must have a functional outcome, defined as what new skill and ability is the person acquiring as a result of engaging in the activity. Let's do it again. What new skill and ability is the person acquiring as a result of engaging in the activity? What new skill and ability is the person acquiring as a result of engaging in the activity? So you'll see, I'm going to show you a lot of photos of people engaged in employment activities. And I can show you the functional outcomes. You'll see a photo, if we get this far, of a woman who can barely stand up, has limited range of motion, and the staff is standing behind her like this. And they detail cars. In other words, this traditional day program started a business where people bring in their cars, and they wash them, vacuum and detail them, and clean them up. And here you see a picture of this woman, and the staff is behind her, and she has limited range of motion, and the staff is doing graduated guidance, helping her use a sponge to wash the car. Now, if you have staff that are not trained, they would say, well, she can't do that. Well, that's the reason why I want her to do it. And by the way, she has difficulty standing. She can bear weight, but she has difficulty standing. That's why I want her to stand rather than use her wheelchair when she's cleaning the car. Do you see the role of supervisors in this? Do we all recognize that a training department can't fix this? It has to be the supervisor. So what do you do when the supervisor doesn't understand this stuff? If the supervisor doesn't understand it, how in the world is the staff supposed to understand it? Here we go. Commonly, day program content is determined by professionals relinquishing the task to the day program participants. And I just shudder, right? What would you like to do today? What would you like to do today? That's like asking an Amish child, what's your favorite television program? I mean, it's ridiculous. Are you confident that individuals with intellectual disabilities, who for many have been denied normative life experiences, will decide to maximize their skill acquisition? That they'll be able to promote their adult status, that they'll enhance their quality of life? So when you ask somebody, what do you want to do today? How can they possibly, why would staff do that? Because the staff have no clue what they're supposed to be doing today. So I'm going to ask them what they're supposed to be doing today. If I knew what they were supposed to be doing today, and I knew what would really answer the question about enhancing quality of life and maximizing skills, why would I be asking them? But when staff have no idea what's going to lead to those outcomes, I might as well ask them what they're supposed to do today, because I don't know what you're supposed to do today. There's no content. There's no schedule. What would you like to do? Okay, this is a great photo. And I'm not making it up. As you can just imagine, they're out of business. Coming soon, China buffet, seafood, steak, hibachi, sushi, Italian and Texas barbecue. Does something sound not right to you? Would you like their barbecue? Would you like their Italian food? Boy, their Italian food would be interesting, wouldn't it? But do you realize what that is? There's the traditional day program. Well, what do? We do ADL. We have socialization. We do community exploration. You know, we do academic. We teach people how to read. We do word identification in these little word puzzles. Why are they doing that? Because they have no idea what they're supposed to do. And you can do anything you want to do. So we do ADL, we do socialization, we do communication, we do whatever. It won't work, folks. It just will not work. It didn't work here, they're out of business, it's not going to work there. You cannot be all things. It'd be like a hospital saying they're a psychiatric hospital, an oncology hospital, and an orthopedic hospital. It doesn't work. You know, you got to decide what you are and what you want to be, and you focus on that. We need to give people, and I want to differentiate this. People sometimes bastardize the word. It's not vulgarity. She's upset. Bastardizing this, it's not. No. It's okay. They bastardize the word option and choice. Those have two different definitions. Options are what you provide to people. A choice is the process of selection. I'll give you a mnemonic. You go to a used car lot and the cars have options: power steering, power brakes, backup camera, whatever. That's the options. They don't show you a car with choices. They show you a car with options. Now, you select a car that has air conditioning, power brakes, and power steering, but no backup camera. That was a choice that you made. We should be giving people options. However, here's the key word. They must be bounded. If that word is not in your vocabulary, make it part of your vocabulary. Bounded options. Do you want to do this volunteer activity today, this volunteer activity today, or this volunteer activity? You know, going bowling is not one of the options today. So it's not a matter of not giving people options. I want people to be empowered by their options. The less capable and competent the individual, the smaller and the fewer number of options you give them. That's classic. I go to a grocery store and I'm walking down the cereal aisle. I need cereal. How many options are there? Whoa! Holy mackerel, sweetened cereal, generic brand, dried nuts, raisins in them, family size, small size, hundreds of options. But guess what? You and I are pretty intelligent. You look at all this and say, hey, it's just me and my wife. I don't want a family size. I want to get a small size. I don't want cereal with sugar. It has too many calories in it. I do like cereal, however, with dry fruit, so I'm going to get this. And hey, the trade name costs more. I'm going to get a generic brand. When you have an intellectual disability, that's not going to cut it in most cases. So you bound people's options. The less capable and competent they are, the fewer options you give them. You're right. It is a rights issue. It's a rights issue because people have the right to learn how to make decisions. And you do that by bounding their options. Don't listen to these crazy rightists that says, well, why didn't you tell him do whatever he wants to do? No, I don't. Okay, good question. Any other question on that? Everybody understand bounded options? Here we go. For your consideration. Oh, I can't wait till I get to the definition of meaningful. I'm so excited.
Carol and I.
Yeah, this is like really, because it's really the essence of the whole discussion, since it's so provocative. Day wasting programs are the bromide for those individuals not willing to work and their staff who do not believe in the value of work. The essence of a prisoner doing time in the penal system. A proclamation that people with developmental disabilities are not capable and cannot benefit from work. The Achilles heel of the service system. Here's part of the problem. I don't know if you ever thought about this. If you provide residential supports, you will never hire a staff who hasn't been in one. It's a fact. Every single staff you hire to work and provide residential support has lived in a home. That home may have been a mobile home, a condominium, an apartment, a log cabin in the woods, or a cottage by the lake. But everybody you hire to provide residential supports and who manage and supervises those people have been in a home. So if I gave you no training and I walk you into the house and I'm in the kitchen and I ask you, do you know what people do here? Could they tell me with no training? Of course. Everybody's knows what the damn kitchen is, of course. I walk into the dining room and I said, do you know what people do here? Could they tell me? Of course. I show them, there's the bathroom. Do you know what people do there? Could they tell me? We look at the patio. Do you know what people do there? They could tell me. A home has, and this is a really important point, a natural level of engagement. You do not have to make anything up for the contents in a residence. I get up in the morning, I need to make my bed. I'm hungry, I need to prepare my breakfast. I made the dishes dirty, I need to wash them. I got some crumbs on the floor from my toast, I need to clean the floor. Before I go to work, I need to put my clothes on. So I have a natural level of engagement. No one has to make anything up. Are you with me? Now, you do understand that the vast majority of supervisors and managers for these residents trash it. In other words, they have this wonderful level of engagement, but then they'll come back and have the staff prepare the meals and make the bed and clean the toilet. That's unfortunate. You will never hire a staff to work in a day program environment who has been in one. Never. Unless they have a serious psychiatric illness and they were in a psychiatric day program. You may hire a staff who has worked in one, but you will never hire a staff who has been in one. You'll never have a supervisor supervise somebody who has been in a day program. So guess what? All the content in a day program must be decided by somebody. Somebody has to make, right? Has to make a decision. What are we going to do here? Unlike in a home. So what do they base their decision on? What are we going to do here? Where do they get that information? From the last place they work, looking at other day programs? That's how we got to where we are. Homes are a piece of cake. Day programs are tough because people have to make a decision about what are we going to do here. Here we go. I just threw this in because it's interesting. This is a volunteer employment schedule. I took the photo. I know it may be hard to see, but the point I want to make is that the vast majority of the people who we support are illiterate. And when we do schedules, they need to be photographic. Can you imagine here we're saying we're sensitive to people who have a developmental disability, but yet we'll put a schedule in place that the vast majority of people can't even read it? So you want pictographic, photographic schedules so people can see what it is they're going to be doing and where. You know, we'll even show in the space. So this agency did a really good job, and they wrote next to it. If people can read, that's fine. They can go ahead and read it. This photo schedule display allows participants to know their assigned volunteer activities, though lacking literacy skills. And this is the same quote that I had on the flip chart when you first came in. And I would ask you, what is the purpose of their life? You can tell me the purpose of your life. I know the purpose of my life. What's the purpose of their life? What gives life purpose and meaning? I believe people have a right to have purpose in their life. You don't hear that from the rightists, though, do you? Right? They don't call them consumers without reason. You'll note that the title of this presentation, Transition from Consumer to Producer. And the term consumer is really interesting. I may have shared with you, if you came to another session, or maybe not, that the term consumer was a word used by the Nazis, Hitler and the Third Reich. Are you aware of that? It was a term that they used to describe Jews, gypsies, people of color, and people with disabilities. The German word for consumer is probably one of the most vulgar of all words, because Germany was facing a depression going into World War II, and they were looking for a scapegoat. What was causing the financial ruin in Germany? And they said, it's all these people. It's the Jews, it's the black people, it's the people with disabilities, you know, it's the gays. They're the cause of this. They are sucking everything out of the system. They consume. Don't you find it interesting that we have embraced the word consumer in many cases as the word of choice to describe the people who we support? Not producers, but consumers. So, and I wonder if that's by accident. Being an adult is a bilateral process. You have to know how to give as well as receive. Children are on the receiving end of giving. You going to give me something for my birthday? Are you going to give me, got a present? It's Christmas. Got a Christmas present for me? But that's what 3- and 4-year-olds do. When you're an adult, you give more than receive because you realize the importance of that. The people we support have been primarily on the receiving end of giving far too long. It is payback time. And I mean it. It's payback time. Can you imagine if there were like 20 of me, what we could do? No, I mean, I wish. I just wish. God, I need some recruits. Why can't it be the 20 of you, out there to change hearts and minds? We do a much better job of finding people for places and places for people. I'm going to say it again. If English is not your primary language, you're just going to struggle with that one. We do a much better job of finding people for places and places for people. What do you find? A traditional day program contacts Kern Regional Center. We got a spot here. Is there somebody that you can refer? Can you place somebody in my day program? Got a vacancy. Guess what? Can't do that anymore because there will be no places. What we have is a person who's come to the attention of a regional center, and now we have to decide how we best can support them in an integrated setting and have a meaningful day, which we will define, for them. It's not a matter of having these pre-packaged places and you're putting people into them. That doesn't even make any sense. That's an old system. It was called the continuum of service, which I won't even get into all that, but it doesn't make sense. So we will have no more placement because there'll be no more places. You follow that? No more placement because there'll be no more places. We talk about person-centered thinking, but yet we've structured a system that there's no reason to have person-centered thinking because we already have a structure and places and you just put them in it. Why person-centered thinking doesn't make any sense in that sense. The typical day program embraces pre-vocational focus. This is important. I'm not going to put it on the top 5, but it's important. Pre-vocational focus, getting people ready for work. Everybody know what pre means? Everybody know? What does pre mean?
Before.
Never.
Never.
Dr. Lou Brown. Y'all know Lou Brown? He is the father of supported employment. If you don't know him, you need to find out who this guy is. The father of supported employment. And he came up with this thing. I actually wrote a few articles on it. The concepts of pre means never. Because people go into these pre-vocational programs and they never get out of them. They stay there forever. No pre-vocational. There's no readiness program. You teach, this phrase is going to be very important, you teach the skill in the environment where it is to be exercised. Do you all have that? You teach the skill in the environment where it is to be exercised. One of the hallmarks of having an intellectual disability is difficulty in generalizing learned behavior from one environment to another. May be very different with someone who's intellectually very capable who has cerebral palsy, somebody who's intellectually capable who has autism. I'm not applying that concept to all people with developmental disabilities. I am to people who have an intellectual disability. So you teach the skills in place. IPJIT, in place, just in time. Unlike the old model, what do we have? Thank you. Programs. We're going to have a program to teach people how to make beds. So I go to the day program and they have a bed. I'm not making this up. It's an ADL room, right? ADL room. We're teaching them how to make a bed. But guess what? It's a twin bed. And they have flat sheets. And the bed's in the center of the room. In his home, it's a double bed. And it's fitted sheets. And the bed is against the wall. If he could make that, if you teach him to make that bed, the probability of making the bed at home is slim to none for most people with intellectual disabilities. And besides, the staff don't want him to make the bed anyways. They make the bed because they're not direct support professionals, they're direct care staff. That's what the supervisor said. Go make the bed, right? Let me do one more and then we'll stop. Oh, this is good. 6 individuals are transported daily to a park, supported by 2 staff. They spend their day doing, quote, whatever. That is a photo, because when I do on-site coaching, I go with folks wherever they go. And I don't know if you can see it, but they have games and all kinds of balls and a basket thing that they take out of the van and they put on picnic tables at the park. And these adults sit there and play with these things. Tell me, what are all the other people in the park thinking about those adults when they see them doing that? What are we getting in their head? What are they processing? What do you want them to think?